They charged her $100,000 for a bottle of water and then flagged her for fraud. No warning, no recourse, just a quiet label slapped across her name like she was the threat. 30 minutes earlier, she'd been removed from the first-class line for looking out of place. Her boarding pass said 1A, but that didn't matter, not to them. She was black, alone, calm, and that made her dangerous. By the time she tried to report it, every system had locked her out. No complaint form, no call center, no way back in. They took her seat, her meal, her bag, and now her voice. But what no one realized, not the agents, not the supervisors, not even the man who flagged her card, was that this wasn't just a mistake. This was the most expensive bottle of water they'd ever sell. Because the woman they tried to erase is the one who built the system they're about to drown in. Still think this is just about a drink? Keep watching. Comment your thoughts. Share if this shook you. And don't forget to subscribe. Because this story, it's just getting started. Autumn Sinclair had walked through hundreds of airports across the world. Tokyo, Dubai, Johannesburg, London. She had seen security lines wrap around terminals like vines, watched VIP lounges sparkle with silence, and felt the rush of takeoff more times than she could count. But this moment, at gate C21 of Haven Air's first-class check-in, was different. She stood in line dressed in a tailored gray blazer, simple but sharp, heels silent on the polished floor. In her hand was a slim leather passport wallet and her digital boarding pass. Seat 1A, Zurich bound, first class, paid in full. Her posture was calm, precise. She wasn't rushing. She never needed to. The airline agent barely looked up. A young man in his early 30s, neat haircut, badge pinned too high on his uniform. His eyes flicked to Autumn's face, then to the line behind her. "Economy check-ins that way," he said, pointing without emotion. His voice wasn't rude, just automatic, like he'd made an assumption and had already moved on. Autumn raised an eyebrow, not confrontational, just confused. "I'm in first class," she said simply, raising the boarding pass slightly, her tone clear, controlled. "This is my lane." The agent didn't take the pass. He didn't ask for her name. He just kept pointing. "That side's for first class," he said again, firmer now, as if explaining something to a child. "This lane's for priority guests only." Autumn's mouth remained closed for a beat too long. Behind her, a white man in joggers and a hoodie stepped up, earbuds dangling. The agent's demeanor shifted like someone had flipped a switch. "Good morning, sir. Flying first with us today?" he asked, suddenly cheerful. The man nodded and handed over his phone. "Welcome aboard," the agent said, scanning the code. "Would you like still or sparkling water before boarding?" Autumn didn't interrupt. She didn't step aside either. She waited. When the man passed through, she leaned forward just enough to meet the agent's eye. "Would you like to see my pass now?" His jaw twitched. Slowly, he extended his hand. Autumn placed the boarding pass in his palm. He scanned it, and the screen glowed green. 1A. The agent's throat shifted as he swallowed. Thank you, Ms. Sinclair," he muttered. She took her pass back without a word. But the damage wasn't in what he said, it was in what he assumed. She didn't need to cause a scene. The moment had already spoken for itself. As she moved forward, she noticed the glances. The woman, two people behind her, watching without blinking. The man with the coffee cup who had looked up from his phone. No one said anything, but everyone had seen it. She didn't feel embarrassed. She felt studied. Autumn walked past the gate with measured grace, her heels echoing like punctuation marks on marble. Not fast, not loud, just unshakable. At the next checkpoint, she opened her phone and took a screenshot of the boarding pass scan log. Time stamped, verified. Then she tucked her phone away. Because in Autumn Sinclair's world, moments like these weren't forgotten. They were documented. The agent at the counter wouldn't remember this encounter a day from now, but Autumn would. Because this wasn't about a lane. It wasn't about a boarding pass. It was about what people saw when they looked at her, and what they chose not to see. Autumn Sinclair moved past the check-in counter with her shoulders squared and her silence intact. She didn't turn around, didn't give the agent one more glance. She had walked through tension before. The real kind, at investor summits, contract negotiations, and on tarmacs where entire deals could collapse with one misstep. This was rehearsal. The TSA checkpoint loomed ahead. The sign above the right lane blinked. TSA PreCheck Global Entry Priority Access. She belonged there. She knew she belonged there. Autumn stepped into the lane, placing her phone against the scanner. Her boarding pass flashed green. The agent checked her ID. Everything routine, until the tone changed. "Ma'am," said the agent, squinting slightly at the screen. "You've been selected for additional screening." Autumn blinked once. "Random?" she asked. The agent nodded. "Standard procedure." "Of course," she replied, though she knew it wasn't. This was the third time today. Once in the initial boarding manifest queue. Once at the lounge access point. And now again here, where she'd already cleared the system. She stepped aside as directed, removing her coat with quiet efficiency. A second agent motioned toward the manual inspection table. His gloves were already on. "Anything fragile?" he asked flatly. Autumn unzipped her briefcase. "Several things. Please be careful." They weren't. Her laptop was powered on and scanned. Her charger unwound. Her leather portfolio was opened, revealing signed contracts and marked documents labeled Confidential Horizon Capital. One of the agents flipped through a sealed folder with his bare hands. "You in finance?" he asked. More curious than respectful. Autumn's tone didn't waver. "That's correct." He smirked. "Lot of paperwork for someone flying digital." She didn't answer. A female agent waved a wand across Autumn's body. No beeps. No buzzes. Still, the search continued. The air around her seemed to thicken, not with noise, but with hesitation. People behind her moved quickly through the line. A woman in heels. A man in a Patriot's cap. No one else was stopped. No one else was questioned. Only her. Her tablet case was opened. Her stylus dropped. The agent didn't notice. Autumn bent down herself and picked it up. The lead officer stepped over. "Is there a problem?" "No," she said, standing upright. "Just clumsy inspection." They finished without apology. Autumn repacked her things with precision. Every folder aligned. Every strap refastened. She had practiced this before. Not the packing, the composure. Beyond the checkpoint, she passed a row of passengers waiting in the general security line. One of them, a teenage girl, watched her walk by. Their eyes met for a second. The girl looked away first. Autumn didn't flinch. She approached the escalator to the terminal's second level, where the first-class lounge was located. She didn't check her phone. She didn't need a timestamp. The moment itself was the record. Third time in 2 hours. Autumn Sinclair didn't believe in coincidences, especially when they wore matching uniforms and followed her step for step. This wasn't random. It was orchestrated. And the system? It had already decided who she was, before she ever opened her mouth. Autumn Sinclair reached the top of the escalator, her pulse steady, but her eyes sharper than before. She wasn't angry. Anger was noisy, imprecise. She preferred clarity. Past the mosaic-tiled wall and the tall glass panels of the terminal, she turned toward gate C12, the one assigned on her original boarding pass. 1A, first class. Left aisle window seat. A spot of quiet above the clouds. But as she approached the counter, something felt off. The gate screen no longer showed her name. The manifest list was cycling, but her seat was blank. She scanned it twice, nothing. Like she'd never been booked. Autumn didn't panic. She walked to the self-service kiosk just past the cafe. It took only 3 inputs: last name, flight code, verification. The machine blinked and printed a new boarding pass. Autumn picked it up slowly. Seat 32B. She stared at it for several seconds. Economy. Middle seat. Near the rear lavatory. The opposite of 1A in every possible way. She tapped the screen again. Re-entered her confirmation code. The same result. Seating assigned at gate. Autumn exhaled through her nose, calm as ever. But inside, her precision sharpened. This wasn't a system error. It was deliberate. She turned from a kiosk and walked directly to the gate counter. The agent behind it was new, different from the one at check-in. She didn't recognize Autumn. "How can I help you?" the woman asked without looking up. "My original seat was 1A," Autumn said evenly. "It's been replaced with 32B. I'd like it restored." The agent tapped her keyboard. Her expression froze, then shifted to neutral. "There's a technical note on your profile," she said. "The system auto-adjusted due to boarding conflict." "There is no conflict," Autumn replied. "I was confirmed days ago." The agent hesitated. "I can file a manual request, but first class is now locked." "Unlock it," Autumn said, voice low but firm. The woman blinked. "I'm sorry, I don't have that level of access." Autumn didn't flinch. "Then find someone who does." The agent paused, then scribbled something on a slip of receipt paper and slid it across the counter. "Guest services. You can call and escalate the issue." Autumn didn't move. She didn't touch the paper. Instead, she spoke slowly, clearly. "I'm standing here, in front of the system that made the error. I won't be making a call." The agent looked down again, tapping, but no change came. Behind her, the boarding zone for Group 1 opened. Passengers began lining up. Suits and scarves, duffels and diamonds. Autumn stepped back from the desk. She didn't argue. She walked toward the nearby seating area, took a deep breath, and sat at the edge of a low leather bench. Her briefcase rested beside her, still untouched, still zippered. Her phone vibrated once. A calendar alert. Zurich meeting, T, 8 hours. She didn't open it. Instead, she looked at the crumpled boarding pass in her hand. 32B. The airline had reassigned her without notice, without explanation, without permission. Not to punish her, but to erase her. It wasn't just about the seat. It was about control. Because sometimes the most effective way to undermine someone's power is to place them in a position where no one expects them to matter. And Autumn Sinclair had just been placed in 32B. They thought they had downgraded her. They had no idea they were activating her. Autumn Sinclair sat still, the boarding pass for seat 32B resting lightly between her fingers. Her eyes scanned the gate area, not searching, just absorbing. She was calculating. Not visibly. Not yet. The air smelled like processed coffee and synthetic upholstery. Passengers moved around her with small, entitled motions, adjusting scarves, checking smartwatches, asking for upgrades they hadn't earned. Autumn didn't need an upgrade. She had already paid for the best. And now she had been quietly removed from it. She stood. Across the concourse, behind frosted glass, was the entrance to the first-class lounge, a space that, until less than an hour ago, had been part of her expected itinerary. She approached without hesitation. At the counter stood a receptionist in a navy blazer, her hair perfectly coiled, her smile professional. But as Autumn handed over her boarding pass, the woman's smile flickered. She scanned the code. The screen blinked, then blinked again. "I'm sorry, Ms. Sinclair," the receptionist said. "Your lounge access has been revoked." Autumn's expression didn't change. "That's incorrect," she said. "My confirmation includes full access. Would you like to see the receipt?" She opened her phone and held out a screen. "Email confirmation, timestamped, verified." The receptionist leaned in, scanning, then paused. "This must be a system glitch. One moment." She tapped the override panel. Once, twice, a third time. Each time, the access light flashed red. "I've tried everything I can," the woman said finally. "But the system updated your status 15 minutes ago. You're no longer listed as first class." Autumn nodded once. "I see." She turned without comment, walking past a wall lined with polished magazines, titles she'd been featured in, quoted in, sometimes funded. They were on the shelves. She was on the outside. She didn't return to the waiting area. Instead, she made her way toward the pre-boarding bistro, the one reserved for first-class meal prep. It wasn't public knowledge, but Autumn knew it well. She had dietary requirements most restaurants couldn't handle, let alone airborne catering. No dairy, no gluten, low sodium, not preference. Medical necessity. She had submitted her special meal request 4 days in advance. Confirmed twice. Verified once more upon check-in. She stepped up to the counter. The host, a young man in a white apron, scanned her new boarding pass. His smile was polite until it wasn't. "I'm sorry, you're not listed on the meal manifest anymore." Autumn tilted her head slightly. "That's not possible. My meal was logged and approved. Confirmed with a medical note." The host shrugged. "It must have been removed when your seat was changed." "To 32B, she said, more to herself than him. "Exactly. That section doesn't receive custom catering. Even for passengers with medical documentation." A pause. He looked past her toward the growing line of customers. "I'm really sorry. There's nothing I can do." Autumn didn't argue. She stepped aside. Behind her, another passenger ordered a gluten-free platter without question. She watched it slide across the counter, steam rising from grilled vegetables, lemon rice. A perfect reflection of the meal she no longer had access to. Not because it wasn't available, because someone decided she no longer qualified for it. She returned to the terminal floor and sat once more. This wasn't hunger. It wasn't exhaustion. It was strategy. Every system she encountered had used a different excuse. System error, policy glitch, routine reassignment. But all of them had reached the same conclusion. Remove access. Reduce comfort. Reposition her as ordinary. It wasn't punishment. It was precision. And Autumn Sinclair, patient, precise, unshaken, was beginning to take notes. The next move wouldn't be reaction. It would be initiation. Autumn Sinclair walked quietly toward the far end of the terminal, past rows of passengers tapping away on laptops or watching muted sports highlights on mounted screens. The air had grown colder, artificial, sanitized. A vending machine stood near gate D4, glowing with artificial cheer. Bottled water, iced tea, soft drinks. Autumn reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her business card wallet. A slim carbon weave case with a built-in digital chip. Inside was a high-limit, biometric-secured corporate account card tied directly to one of her investment firms. She tapped the card against the scanner. The machine beeped once. Then it blinked. Transaction complete. $100,000. Autumn's eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just stared at the screen for a full second. Then two. The bottle of water dropped into the bin below. Behind her, a janitor paused with his cart. A gate agent nearby looked up. Autumn turned to the kiosk, pressed for receipt. Nothing printed. She walked to the help desk 20 feet away, the bottle still in her hand. Calmly, "There's been a billing error," she said. "The vending machine charged me $100,000. The agent, young mid-20s, clearly new, frowned, trying not to laugh. "Did you say 100,000? "Yes." She handed him the bottle. He scanned the label, then typed into the screen. "That can't be right," he said. "It's $2.75. "Not according to my bank." He looked again, then called the supervisor. The supervisor, older and too tired to care, shrugged. "We've seen glitches before. The system auto-scanned your card as a tier, one corporate key. Probably read it as a premium asset transfer." Autumn blinked once. "It's not a glitch. It's theft." The man raised his hands. "I'm just telling you what the software says." A second later, another gate agent appeared, whispering something into a small earpiece. His eyes flicked toward Autumn, then away. He nodded to no one, then walked off. Autumn's phone buzzed. Security alert. Transaction flagged as internal inquiry. Account status temporarily reviewed. She knew what this meant. She had designed systems like this. Her card wasn't just overcharged. It was targeted. By the time she returned to her seat near gate C12, a message had already reached the internal network of Haven Air. Flag profile. Autumn Sinclair code 37F high-risk transaction pattern. Monitor all movement. She wasn't just a woman who overpaid for a drink. She was now a suspicious entity in the eyes of the system. One scan, one glitch, and the story had changed. Not in her favor. Autumn sat with her back straight, fingers laced together. The bottle of water rested on the armrest beside her, unopened, untouched. Across from her, two employees spoke in hushed tones near the gate podium. One pointed, the other typed. She had seen this dance before, only this time, she wasn't in the boardroom watching it happen to someone else. She was in it. Her profile wasn't just being tagged, it was being redefined. From elite to disruptive, from trusted to tracked, all from a plastic bottle and a silent, untraceable decision. Autumn opened her bag, pulled out her tablet, scanned her thumb. A familiar interface appeared. Encrypted, proprietary, private. A single line blinked at the bottom of the screen. Would you like to begin escalation protocol? She didn't touch it yet. Not yet. First, she took a sip of the water. Cool, clean, empty of meaning. Until now. Because that bottle hadn't cost her $2.75. It had cost them their last chance. Autumn Sinclair sat silently, her tablet still glowing dimly in her lap. The interface waited, blinking its question again. Would you like to begin escalation protocol? She didn't press yes. Not yet. Not because she doubted what was happening, but because she understood exactly how it would play out. She had spent years building systems like the one currently watching her. But even now, seeing it move against her in real time was like watching a reflection she never meant to cast. 5 gates away, in a backroom server terminal, a supervisor received a silent ping. Code 37F. High risk. Suspected misuse of corporate assets. There were no alarms, no flashing red banners, just a quiet change in status. Autumn Sinclair, investor, executive government consultant, was now tagged in the system as a potential fraud risk. All employees scanning her name would now see a red triangle, a warning to observe, delay, document, and defer resolution. Nothing had to be proven, only implied. Back at gate C12, a young employee walked slowly toward a row, not with urgency, but with purpose. He paused 2 seats away, then spoke casually. "Excuse me, ma'am. I'm going to need to verify something with your ticket." Autumn looked up. "What exactly needs verifying?" "Just a protocol check," he said. "A recent purchase triggered a system note. It'll only take a second." She handed over her boarding pass. He didn't scan it. He looked at it, then tapped into a tablet. His eyes moved slowly across the screen, then narrowed slightly. He stepped away without a word. Autumn watched him walk back to the podium, where another employee leaned in and whispered something. They glanced toward her. Not hostile, just cautious. That was worse. Minutes later, a message appeared on her phone. "Transaction under review by Orion Financial Security. Please refrain from further activity until the investigation is complete." She had been silenced. Digitally. That meant her account was frozen, her access limited, her presence flagged. A woman who once funded aerospace innovation across 3 continents, now officially labeled as untrustworthy by the same airline that used to greet her by name. She tapped into a secure server through her tablet, cross-referenced the transaction log. Her water bottle had been rerouted through a shadow code, normally reserved for currency laundering detection. Someone hadn't just overcharged her. They'd weaponized the internal compliance system against her. Across the terminal, 2 plainclothes security officers had appeared near gate D8. One carried a radio, the other a clipboard. Neither of them looked at Autumn, but both knew her name. She stood, walked deliberately toward a nearby service kiosk, scanned her boarding pass. Access denied. Profile under review. Contact staff. She turned away slowly. A child nearby dropped a toy. She picked it up and handed it back. The mother smiled but looked nervous. That was the power of a label. It didn't need to be true. It just needed to exist. Autumn returned to her bench, opened her tablet again. The screen still blinked. "Would you like to begin escalation protocol?" She stared at it for a long, still moment. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about what happened when power wrapped itself in procedures and hid behind standard operating protocol. She closed the tablet gently, for now, because when she did press yes, the system wouldn't just answer her. It would remember who built it. Autumn Sinclair had never needed help from a kiosk. But this time, she wasn't requesting assistance. She was demanding accountability, and the machine refused her. She stared at the screen. The words didn't blink. They didn't explain. They just sat there, passive and absolute. Your profile has been restricted. Please contact an airline representative. No option to file a complaint. No box for feedback. Not even a contact form. Just a wall. Digital. Immovable. She tapped again. Same message. She tried another kiosk down the hall. Same screen. Same denial. Same silence. Across the terminal, passengers wandered with drinks and duty-free bags, unaware that a silent execution had taken place. Not physical, not loud, but very real. Autumn had been locked out of the system. Not delayed, not flagged, erased. She walked to the customer service desk, the one marked priority support. There was no line, just one agent typing, nails clacking across plastic keys. Autumn stepped forward. My profile was flagged incorrectly. I need someone to unlock it. The woman didn't look up. Name: Autumn Sinclair. The agent typed. Paused. Her face changed. The kind of change people make when they're told not to react. I'm sorry, she said. Your account is under review. I can't assist further. Can I speak to someone who can? I'm afraid that's not possible. Why not? There's a temporary freeze on your customer file. Autumn leaned forward slightly. Temporary or permanent? The woman hesitated. That depends on the findings of the review. And how long does that take? There's no exact time frame. No escalation pathway. No. Autumn nodded slowly. There it was. They had removed every option. No complaint. No defense. No visibility into what she'd been accused of. Just the word review. And a terminal full of silence. She turned away and walked. Not aimlessly, but methodically. She passed gate C10, then C9. The floor beneath her hummed with subtle vibration. Power lines, data streams, signals invisible to the human eye. But not to her. She had built systems like this. She understood what was happening. Someone had marked her as disruptive. And the moment that marker hit the network, everything responded to it. The vending charge. The boarding reassignment. The loss of lounge access. The revoked meal. It wasn't coincidence. It was coordinated exclusion. Autumn reached a third kiosk, this one near a terminal map. Tried scanning her ID again. This time, no error message. Just a red screen. Gate locked. Seat unavailable. Profile under special hold. She didn't react. Not externally. But inside, something clicked into position. Not fury. Not fear. Precision. A man in a dark blazer walked by, glancing at her tablet as he passed. He kept walking. Didn't speak. But Autumn saw the badge clipped inside his coat. Security Review Division. They weren't just watching her. They were waiting for her to react. To raise her voice. To prove their label right. But Autumn Sinclair wasn't here to play defense. She returned to her seat. Took out her tablet again. Opened the encrypted interface. The blinking line appeared once more. Would you like to begin escalation protocol? She placed her finger over the command. Then paused. Let it breathe. Because the most dangerous person in a room isn't the one who yells. It's the one who waits. Autumn Sinclair was known in global finance circles for two things: her silence and her preparation. She never arrived at a negotiation without a second layer of documentation, stored in analog and encrypted formats. She never trusted cloud-based platforms with sensitive legal briefings. And she never checked her most critical materials, which made what happened next all the more revealing. She walked toward the baggage inquiry desk, not because she had checked anything, but because something fell off. A message had appeared quietly on her tablet 10 minutes ago. Item rerouted due to carry-on noncompliance. Claim number unavailable. Please see baggage services. Autumn didn't need to see the tag to know which item they meant. her carry-on briefcase, the one she had never surrendered. Behind the counter, a staff member in a green vest was scrolling through a tablet. "I need to locate a bag," Autumn said clearly. "It was removed from my possession without check-in, without authorization, and without a claim receipt." The staffer looked up. "Name?" "Sinclair." "Autumn." He typed. His brow creased. "It was marked as oversized by gate personnel," he muttered. "Routed through secondary screening. Sent down through internal transfer chute to back hold." "There is no tag?" "Nope." "Then how do you plan to identify it?" "We logged the security code attached to the boarding file. Looks like it was flagged for special handling." That phrase again. Special handling. Autumn's jaw didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. "Where is it now?" "Storage," the man said. "Follow me." Down a short hallway, past a utility door, and into a fluorescent-lit room with rubber floors and steel shelving. Autumn saw it. Her briefcase. It sat alone near a mop bucket, unzipped, the leather scratched along one edge like it had been dragged, not rolled. She dropped to one knee, opened it carefully. Inside, her printed contracts, creased, corners damp. A sealed folder, half-soaked, label smeared. Her USB drive, gone. A small velvet box in the side pocket, once housing a platinum-edged security key, was now open, the interior lining soaked and warped beyond use. Footsteps behind her. The staffer hovered awkwardly in the doorway. Autumn stood slowly, the briefcase still open in her hands. "This was intentional," she said calmly. The man raised both hands. "We don't handle security flags. That comes from flight-side coordination. Gate team logs it. We just receive." "No cameras in here?" "Not since last year. Cutbacks." "Of course." She wheeled the bag behind her as she left, her grip tight on the handle. Every item had been touched, some destroyed, others simply disappeared. They hadn't just tampered with her belongings. They'd sabotaged her credibility, the kind of damage that wouldn't show up in a headline, but would quietly discredit her if she ever tried to prove what had happened. And that's what this was about. Not her comfort, not her seat, not even her silence. It was about disqualifying her, quietly, permanently, one system at a time. Back upstairs, Autumn returned to the kiosk, tried to log a formal damage report, scanned her ID. The screen flashed. Access blocked. User profile under institutional review. They hadn't just taken her things. They had taken away her ability to name what was lost, to make it official, to make it real. She returned to her bench, every step exact. Opened her tablet one more time. The blinking prompt was still there. "Would you like to begin escalation protocol?" Autumn stared at it for exactly 3 seconds. Then she pressed yes. Autumn Sinclair didn't flinch when she pressed yes. The screen didn't glow. It pulsed, once, like a silent drumbeat beneath the system's skin. The interface changed immediately. Redline protocol activated. 3 blinking panels appeared, each marked with a category. 1. Asset withdrawal 2. Capital freeze 3. Regulatory cascade. Autumn didn't hesitate. She authorized them all. Asset withdrawal. The first command transferred $100 million from Haven Air and its holding affiliates. Capital tied to investment groups. Autumn controlled silently through layered equity. In 3 seconds, the funds evaporated from their liquidity pool. In 5 seconds, internal alerts were triggered. In 7 seconds, panic began in rooms she wasn't in, but had long predicted. Capital freeze. The second command froze every international funding channel affiliated with Orion Aviation Group, Nexus Sovereign Holdings, and its 5 global development partners. Automatic compliance checks were triggered. Private investors saw capital hold, pending compliance review. 10 deals were locked. 3 airport contracts halted. A multinational expansion plan involving 4 continents was now in limbo. Regulatory cascade. The third command triggered something even more lethal. A synchronized transmission of documentation. Encrypted data packets containing timestamped security footage logs, discriminatory flagging records, audio transcripts, internal flight codes, passenger suppression tags. They were sent to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), the Department of Transportation (DOT), Interpol's Financial Crimes Division, and 3 media outlets with global reach. Under sealed agreements, each recipient received the same subject line: Systemic Suppression Verified. Sinclair case number 001. Autumn closed her tablet. She didn't need to watch. She already knew what would happen next. 30 feet away, a supervisor's phone vibrated violently. He picked it up, eyes narrowing. At the same time, a conference room door near gate D6 burst open. 2 mid-level managers stormed out, voices tense, phones glued to ears. Screens around the terminal blinked. Flight 882 Zurich, operational delay. Flight 129 Seoul, crew verification. Required. Flight 406 London, technical review. Passengers began to murmur. No one knew why. Autumn did. She took the bottle of water from her bag, the one that cost $100,000. Set it beside her. Didn't touch it. Across the concourse, a man in a suit sprinted past the information desk. A woman in heels followed, holding a folder labeled PR Response Draft V1. She was no longer invisible. She was a storm they hadn't prepared for. And it had just landed. Inside the airline's executive portal, a priority level alert lit up. Redline breach. Multiple data releases detected. Contract destabilization imminent. An emergency meeting was called in boardroom B. But it was already too late. Autumn had pulled the thread, and the fabric of their control was unraveling. System by system, silence by silence. Back at her seat, she watched as 2 of the security staff who had once circled her now stared at their radios in confusion. Her name was no longer flagged. It was being discussed at the highest levels. She could feel it, because sometimes when you're erased, you erase back. Autumn Sinclair didn't stand when the overhead speakers crackled. She didn't flinch. She simply listened. Attention all passengers. Orion Air International operations are currently suspended for administrative review. Further updates will follow at designated service desks. The terminal stopped. Not fully. Just enough. Phones lit up. Heads turned. Agents froze mid-sentence. Executives bolted from glass offices. A baby started to cry. Somewhere overhead, a screen blinked and dimmed. Autumn remained still, as if she had expected the announcement to land right at her feet. Because she had. Across the terminal, inside boardroom B, the chaos was no longer behind closed doors. Trent Maxwell, the agent who flagged her, dismissed her, erased her, sat alone at a long metal table. In front of him, a resignation form. Beside it, a printed dossier titled Confidential Sinclair Protocol Findings. It detailed every choice he thought no one would trace. The fake reassignment, the security flag, the vending machine, theft, the damage to her property, the silent denial of rights, and most damning of all, the pattern. 24 passengers. Same profile. Same code tag. All suppressed. A regional executive spoke from the corner. Do you understand who she is now? Trent didn't answer. He didn't have to, because now he knew. Autumn Sinclair wasn't a problem passenger. She was the principal investor behind 3 of Orion's largest funding bodies. She was a shadow signatory with veto rights across Nexus Holdings. And she had just withdrawn $100 million and triggered a cascade that would take years to rebuild. Back in the terminal, Autumn stood, not slowly, not dramatically. She walked to the main desk and placed a slim envelope in front of a lead attendant. Please deliver this to Leonard Westbrook, she said, VP of International Operations. The attendant blinked. He's in an emergency meeting. Not anymore. Inside the envelope, legal records, audit logs, and an ultimatum. If Haven Air didn't respond within 15 minutes, every partner listed in the documents would receive a public copy. That included federal oversight and international media. Westbrook found her near gate D1, coat folded neatly across her arm. His voice trembled. MS. Sinclair. I've read the reports. Autumn didn't rise to greet him. Then you understand the scope, she said. This wasn't policy failure. This was cultural rot. It was built in. Westbrook nodded, pale. We're preparing a statement. Internal resignations. A restructuring audit. You're preparing, she said. But I've already acted. He looked down. Then, quietly, why now? Autumn finally looked at him. Because I was tired of making it easy for people to ignore women like me until they felt our absence in their wallets. She boarded a non-Orion flight an hour later. No first-class flair. No escort. Just silence. But as she moved down the jet bridge, a woman in a service vest leaned in and whispered, I saw what they did. I work in systems. Because of you, I'm staying. Autumn nodded. No lecture. No thanks needed. Just recognition. 1 week later, Haven Air's public apology trended globally. Shareholders revolted. The CEO resigned. The new slogan read, Clear skies, clear conscience. But the skies were no longer theirs. Back in her office overlooking the Zurich skyline, Autumn received a final alert. Asset recovery complete. Protocol terminated. She closed the file. No fanfare. No interview. She didn't need the world to know who she was, because the ones who tried to silence her were now speaking her name in every emergency meeting they held. And every time they asked, how did this happen? The answer would always be, she was already in the system, before you ever saw her coming. If this story hit you hard, hit that like button. If you believe power doesn't always look like what they expect, subscribe for more stories that flip the narrative. And tell us below, what moment shook you the most? And where in the world are you watching from?